Host of this podcast, the Moxie Movement, creator of the Power Hour Time Back system and the Success Map system download process. I am stoked to be here. It's been a week. We have had all sorts of exciting stuff going on in our family, in our living location free. We've been exploring new places, doing new things. And alongside that, we're still running our businesses, which is pretty cool to be at a point where we have ticked off that freedom piece. And for me, that's what this whole business journey is about. It's about making sure that I and you as a female business owner get the freedom that you set out to get when you started. You did not get into this business to be working harder and longer and not getting to take any breaks. I want to make sure that you're really clear on what freedoms you want, because there's three key ones, all sorts of them, but the ones that we look for in our business generally are time, location, and financial. And which ones are most important to you? What are the ones that you want to tick off inside your business, and how do we make sure that your business and your life blends together? This week has been one of those weeks where I've been reminded about some very important tools that I use in business that are also quite useful in life. I finally got on a scooter and started riding one here, which has been awesome. And I got really brave this week and I let Scarlett ride on the back. Only going slowly, only going on the roads where it's reasonably flat and straight, because I'm still a little bit nervous of it. And we had an experience where Johnny took us down a little soy, which is like a little side road. I don't like when it's muddy. So when it's muddy, the bike gets a bit slippy and I might have to get my feet muddy, so I have my feet down, which I don't really want to do. It feels unsteady. Anyway, we took off down the soy and I was like, Scarlett, you're going to have to get on with Dad because I don't feel confident enough to have you on the back of the bike with me. And she's like, yeah, sure. She jumped on with Dad and Dad went halfway and stopped and then went again. And I went in and I was in my head, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And I drove partway in and then the back end of my bike went, wee, wee, and I stopped in the middle of it. It was quite a long, muddy piece, but I got halfway in. I got myself halfway in. And now I was regretting said decision to drive on this mud. And I said to Johnny, I'm not sure I can do this. And this person that was walking alongside the soy outside the road popped out and went, you're nearly through. And in my head, I went, oh my God, what's the worst that can happen here? The worst thing that can happen, I'm literally going 5 kilometers an hour through this mud. Like, I'm not going fast. Like, if I said I was going 10, I would be exaggerating. 10 kilometers an hour. I'm going very slowly. I'm like, the worst case scenario is I'm going to fall over. Me and the bike are going to get very muddy. I might get the odd bruise. I might get the odd scratch. But mostly I'm just going to be muddy and I'm going to smell bad. And it's going to dry real fast because it's hot. That's the worst case scenario here. I can do this. I'm just going to go through it. I went a little faster and went straight through it. Got one very muddy foot and one very muddy shoe. But other than that, I was totally okay. And it reminds me of something I think we forget to do in our businesses a lot. Especially if, like me, you love coming up with new ideas and you love seeing the bright side of things, is that we forget to look at the downside. And I love this question of, can you live with the downside? Because if I can live with the downside, then I should probably do it. What I mean by that is, like, when I was on that bike in the mud, I wasn't going, well, the best thing that could happen is that I could just go through this like a pro and it'll be amazing and nothing, there's no risk in that. The risk was I was going to get muddy and I might get some scratches and I might get some bruises and the bike was definitely going to get muddy. That was like the worst case scenario. Now, if I had Scarlett on the back of the bike, the worst case scenario that she would get hurt, that's not something I can live with. That's not a downside as a mother I feel comfortable living with. And it's the same in our business. Like, whenever we're thinking about this, and we went through this process when COVID hit, our business went to zero. Nothing left. In fact, it was negative, massively negative, not just zero. It was big in the hole because people that owed us money didn't pay us. We had people that we needed to pay, and it was a mess. We talked to liquidators. We genuinely had that conversation. They were lovely, really helpful. And they said, no, you don't need to liquidate, you just need to wait this out. And it's very uncomfortable. And so there was lots of nights where it was quite stressful. And I was reminded of this. And we were in bed one night and Scarlett came in for a cuddle. I had Scarlett with Johnny and I was lying on this bed and I was like, you know what? The worst case scenario is we lose everything. Because when you're in business, that's a potential. We lose thing. But if I've got a mattress where I can sleep, a roof over my head, I was thinking at this point, I was thinking maybe my dad will have us back, and I've got Scarlett and Johnny and we're healthy and well, nothing else really matters. Like, worst case scenario, if that's what happens, we'll be okay. Do I want to vote for that? If I get a choice, is that the one I'm picking? No, but I can live with it. It's one of these things I apply now in terms of my business. I've got a really good idea. I'm always looking at what's the downside. And it's something that I work with. My clients have really hard decisions. I'm like, cool. The worst case scenario is let's walk away from it. I've had people in partnerships where they can't agree on things and one needs to buy the other one out. And I'm like, cool, you could walk away from the partnership. What does it owe you? When we go through that process, we go, if I walked away from the partnership, it would take me 10 years to get that money back. I'm like, cool. But you'd have your energy back. And that's the worst case. This is not what we're going to negotiate from. But that's the worst case scenario. Can you live with walking away and spending 10 months or 2 years making that cash back somewhere else? And the answer inevitably is generally yes. Every now and then I say to someone, can you live with that downside? They're like, actually, I can't live with that downside. I'm like, then we're not making this decision. We've got to find another way through this. I've just been reminded this week, can you live with the downside? Because if you can, off you go, you'll be okay. If you can always live with the upside, and we're always looking at the upside. But can you live with the downside? The second thing I've been reminded about this week is stacking habits. When we moved, there were rituals and routines, and I talked a little bit about that, how they went out the door. My days are a little bit topsy-turvy, I guess, because I'm working in New Zealand/Australian time zone, but I'm not there. My days start quite early with my clients, and by the time I get to 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the day, I've done a full day's work. And so my day feels a bit topsy-turvy. It's been a challenging piece for me to stack some of my rituals around that I need for me, for myself centered, keeping myself grounded, regulating my nervous system, looking after my game as a business owner. Because like you, I have to look after that stuff. We did a whole workshop on it, had a blast. And what it reminded me is that I've got some specific tools that I like to use on a daily basis, and I hadn't been doing it. I had to stack them back. It was really about going, where am I going to stack them and how am I going to stack them in a way that works around this kind of topsy-turvy day. Back in New Zealand, I would have put them with my morning coffee, because I would have this kind of nice start to my day that's all mine until 8 o'clock. Not unless I want to get up at 3 in the morning, and I just don't want to do that. I've stacked around a gap that I've put in my calendar around still my morning coffee. I've stacked my journaling, my emotional clearing, which is a tool I freaking love. And when I remember to do it, oh my goodness, it makes such a huge difference. And a wee meditation, a special type of meditation. A friend of mine that is actually coming to visit this weekend, that I did one of his programs, and it's a little bit of hypnosis, a little bit of NLP as like an active recovery session that gives me this real focus for the day, a real focused mind, which I love. It's not very long. I had to stack it around something I was already doing, and I was like, normally it would have been around coming back from the gym, but I'm doing that later in the day. Stacked it around my coffee. I am giving myself the reward of the coffee after I've stacked these things. And I've also told myself that I only have to do 5 minutes of each. Some days that's all I'm getting. And I literally pull out my phone and I go, 5-minute timer, 5 minutes of journaling, 5 minutes of emotional clearing, 5 minutes of meditation. And already I am feeling much more centered, much more grounded. Because it's just something that fell apart when we changed our environment, when we moved countries, set things up a little bit differently. And that's totally normal. And it can happen anytime. Like change of term. The kids have been on school holidays and they've gone back to school, or it's a big shift in the seasonality in your business. Like some people have got really busy winter periods because of the product or the service that they provide, and other people are really busy in the summer. Maybe you have some monthly shifts around, hey, we're really busiest around the 20th of the month, or the end of the month, or the start of the month. Sometimes those changes impact our ability to do our rituals. And what I think is really important to me is that I find something that I'm already doing that I do without thinking. Because if I try and add it in somewhere else, somewhere new, without something that's really consistent, all I find is that I break other pieces. Stacking things, really important to me. Not changing it all at once. Being really consistent since we got here about exercise and water and good food and getting in the sunshine and getting out, putting our feet on the ground and grounding, but some other stuff had gone away. Stacking things back in bit by bit. We've still got some other things I want to put back in. Really want to get back into doing little wind down yoga routine with Scarlett, which we haven't quite managed to fit back in. She's super good at reminding me, but that's definitely something to bring back. And I think the last thing I have really been reminded of in this shift is how much changing your environment impacts the choices that you make. One, it was winter back in New Zealand when we left, and it's not winter here. I know that the season has an impact on it. But we have literally, I would say, halved, maybe more, our screen time. And part of that's just we're being far more present with each other. More conversations, way more sitting and colouring and drawing with Scarlett, playing games, just walking along the beach, remembering how terrible I am at frisbee, going down at sunset and throwing the frisbee around, or watching Johnny and Scarlett throw the frisbee around because I'm not super good at it. But really just much more just in the moment. And I wonder how much of that is the world that we live in is just going fast all the time. And the technology speeds that up. I wonder, is it the environmental shift, therefore we're on our devices, we're watching the screens? Or is it that we've deliberately chosen to watch these screens? I'm not yet sure. I think maybe it was just a really good reset. And because we are out of all the confines of schools, we don't have such a tired child coming home at the end of the day because she's not having to mask at school. She's getting home and she's exhausted and she just wants some downtime, and she wants to sit and watch My Blue Planet or a cooking show or whatever it is that we're pretty limited in what we're about. But even those things are gone. That is it that we are not being frenetic in our days and trying to fit much, like we feel less obligated to do things. We know less people here. There feels like there's a lot less for us to do. Then maybe that's part of it. It's been a good week. It's been fun. We've done some cool stuff. We've met some new people. We've introduced some people to some great restaurants. So if you come hang out with me in Thailand, we have definitely enjoyed exploring places. We have a mystery place that we want to go find on the island that we're on, but it's on the island next door. And when we find it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It sounds it's going to be amazing when we find it. We haven't found it yet. I'm going to leave that until we actually go and do it, and then I'm going to tell you all about it. Lots of my experiences this week have been around the environment that we're in. And when we run businesses, one of the biggest things that impacts the environment are the people in the business. And you have two sets. You have you as the business owner, and then your team of employees or contractors, depending on how you've chosen to do that. Then you've got your customers, your guests, your clients, that are the people that you are exchanging with. There's a lot of people when it comes to business. It's one of the things that I am often reminded of is that many businesses stay solopreneurs, stay effectively self-employed, where they do everything. They get paid more than they would in a job, but they're doing all of the work for themselves. And the reason they do that is this great fear of the friction that comes when you put other human beings. Much of that comes from the fact that none of us are taught how to do it. Literally had this conversation with a client, and she's like, I've just had this amazing manager and I'm really scared about hiring a new one because I'm going to have to find someone with all the management skills because you can't teach that stuff. I was like, interesting. We still think in 2024 that people are born with management and leadership skills. Like when the baby arrives, the doctor lifts the baby out and goes, "Tara, it's going to be a manager." But that's not the case. Management skills, leadership skills, running a team, developing a team, regardless of whether you're in your own business or you work for someone else, they are all soft skills we can be taught, that we can learn and we can take and use in our business. I think some of this is human beings feel complex. I think just about every business owner I've ever spoken to has a terrible story about the time when we asked an employee to do their job and we ended up all the way down the track in some sort of legal process and it was horrific and hideous. We're scared of hiring new people. We're scared of holding people to account and asking them to do their job. And we also have this deep desire to be liked by our people. We have this deep desire to be the fun boss because we've all worked for a shitty boss and none of us want to be that person. None of us want to be the person that their employees are going home and moaning about. I think the flip side of it is that we make this mistake of attempting to be friends with our team. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be a respectful relationship, but being friends with your team brings a whole nother level of challenges with it because there is an inherent imbalance in your relationship. We were in a workshop this week. We were talking all about building out a rockstar team. The most impactful thing I've ever learned is what are the things you have to give your people to make sure that we're all in alignment, that we're all going in the same direction, that we all want the same things. And it's not always really easy to spot what's missing or what you need to fix first. As I was prepping for this workshop, I was reminded of this model I had used when I was teaching transformational change inside the hospitals in New Zealand. And it talks about what are the emotions that show up when you're missing key components to your transformational change project. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. I wonder if these emotions show up when key things are missing from our business too. Had to play around with it, laid this model over the 5 drivers that I see in terms of what we need to have our business all pulling in the same direction. I was like, oh, it's the same. Totally makes sense. It's the Lippitt-Noster model for transformational change, or they call it managing transformational change. I would say we should be leading it, but come see, come home. But you say potato, I say potato, doesn't really matter. The model was super useful. There's 5 things that show up inside your business if you're missing any of the key alignments. And I want to go over those because I think they're really useful to get you and your team moving forward and to know where you need to focus or to know what's missing. The first one that we see is confusion. We see confusion when it's not really clear about where we're going. It's 2 drivers squabbling over, or the driver and the backseat driver or the passenger seat driver squabbling over which way to go on the Sunday drive. We see a whole lot of confusion when we're not really clear about what is the end point, either in a project or in the vision for our business. If you're finding this, oh, we should do it this way, oh, we should go this way, oh, we should do that way, or it just feels like you're not quite pulling in the same direction, then there's probably a lack of understanding around either what the business vision is, or potentially you lack an understanding of what your employee wants out of the business and the role that they have in the business. And you need to know both. They need to know where you're trying to go. And if you don't have those 2 things ticked off, there's absolutely going to be confusion inside your business. The second thing we see that shows up is resistance. I could describe this as when you have kids and you ask them to do something and they ask why, and you say, because I said so. And they're like, that's not a good enough reason for me to do it. This same resistance shows up inside your business. And it's because we're not answering the question, why should I do that? And again, it's either we don't understand why we are building this business, and I don't mean we need to make money and therefore I could pay your wages. What's the bigger reason behind what we do? Every organization, every business I've ever worked with, they set it up to make money, but they also set it up to make a difference. And I think this is particularly important when you're a female leader. You are more driven by the impact of your business and the positive shifts that it makes, not just in your clients or your customers or your guests' lives, but also in your team's lives, and then the ripple effects of that. Understanding the reason why we're doing something, why we're building the project, why we're making the system better, is making sure you don't get that. It feels like someone's got the brakes on or the anchor has been thrown out the back of the boat when really you're trying to go forward. And that's really that resistance that you're seeing because they don't understand why. You can also get it when they took the job because they're like, yeah, I need an income, and they're like taking it for the money. Oh, but my employees aren't motivated by money. I'm like, nobody's motivated by money. Unless you're Scrooge McDuck and you want to have the massive room full of money and you swim around in it because yuck, gross. That is not why you want money. You want it for what you can do with it, for the life that you can give yourself, your team, and your employees are exactly the same, and you need to know why they want the money. Is it to give their family financial security? Is it to put a roof over their head and buy their first house? Is it to go traveling? Is it to make sure their kids can have further education? Is it to go and have adventures? Is it to go and do sports events? Is it because they want to be really involved in their local church or give back to their community in some way. You need to understand what they are going to go and take the money and use it for, because that's the real why. It's not the cash. It's the what are they going to do with the money. If you've got resistance in your business and it feels there's someone's holding you back, then you want to go and figure out, do I know why this person needs the job, why they want the job, what are they doing with their cash? Or have I explained why we're doing this? It's the easiest thing to skip over. We're really good at going, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do and when we're going to do it and how we're going to do it. But we often forget to tell them why. And when people understand why, the resistance just melts away super quick. The next one that's going to show up is sabotage. This one's an interesting one. The sabotage is the same thing, I think, as when we talk about self-sabotage without self. Self-sabotage is like, I know I should eat the apple and not the chocolate bar, but there's days when I just sabotage myself and I eat the whole chocolate bar when I'm trying to be healthy and look after myself. And the challenge with that is it's not actually self-sabotage. What it is a misalignment between the results that you want and your underlying values and beliefs. You have to get really good at aligning those two things. What do I want? With the values and the beliefs that you have. And it's the same in your business. So if it feels like there's this misalignment, you feel like you're being sabotaged from within with the way that people are behaving, the way that maybe they speak to you, then you've got a values problem. People do not understand how to behave, or their values are not in alignment with the organization's values, with the business's values. Now, they don't need to be the same. God, employ anyone, because they're never going to be exactly the same. They just have to not be banging up against each other in conflict, because as an individual, we will always act in accordance with our own values and beliefs, because the biggest problems with our values and beliefs is we believe them. If they contradict with the values of the organization, of the business that you run, they're always going to side with this, and it's going to feel like they're constantly pulling out of alignment with what you're trying to do. And if you understand your values and they understand your values, and we've checked in and made sure that the things that matter most to them, the things that they underlying believe are aligned, then you'll be okay and you'll move forward. You'll get rid of that sabotage and get this alignment. The next thing we see is anxiety, worry, concern. This one shows up when people don't know what to do. I know why we're going there. I know that it's all in alignment with what I believe and my values. But man, I have got no idea what the first 3 steps are, let alone the whole 100 steps for this process that we need to do. People worry when they don't know what they need to do. What are the steps? Comes down to human nature will say, I will take the easiest, fastest route. Human beings will go the easiest, fastest way, which is they'll get worried and then they're going to come to you and they're going to ask you questions as the business owner, because you've got all the answers. It's your business, and your natural reaction is going to be to answer all the questions. You've got anxiety in your business, worry, people concerned about doing things the right way, getting it right, making sure they've got the right answer. This is when people don't know what to do, and they're taking the easiest, fastest route. You got to make sure that whatever your plan is of attack, your way of doing things, your step-by-step instructions, you got to make sure that they can get it without getting it out of your head. I'm a total systems jam on this, because when they can know that there's a central place that they can go and get the information, your team just have complete confidence, because I'm going to follow the system. And I also know around here that the system runs the business and we just run the systems. If I follow the systems and something goes wrong, it's never going to be a me problem. It's always going to be a system problem. If you ask me, system problems are way easier, because systems don't have feelings or emotions. It's way, way easier to solve them than it is to solve people problems. We got frameworks for solving the people problems, but let me tell you, system problems are where it's at. But I think probably one of the most common ones is freaking frustration. Frustration that we don't have everything we need to get this done. We don't know who's going to do it, or the person that said they were going to do it hasn't done it. We don't know where we're supposed to do it or when we're supposed to do it. They've given us this project, but it's on top of our normal work, but we've got no time and capacity to do it. Or they've given us this project, but they haven't given us a budget, told us how much money we can spend, or they've not given us the right equipment or the right training. You're going to see much frustration when you don't give all the resources and the action plan that goes with that resources to execute on it. It's all well and good giving them the systems and then saying, use this piece of technology or this machinery or do it for this long or spend this much money on it. But if you don't then give them the resources to do that, you're going to see much frustration. You can see this when you haven't got enough team members. You might have a great worker who's great at getting work done. You'll have a real tendency to give them the extra work because they're going to do way more than your B player over here. The other reason that it happens is that this person will always do what you ask, and your B player over here doesn't do the job right. You have to have a hard conversation with them, and you're avoiding it. You're not holding these guys to account. You need that accountability around getting that work done, because that will lead to friction inside your team, because there's a perception that we're being paid the same, but I'm doing all the work, and this guy's getting away with not doing the work, or gal, and no one's holding them to account. Whereas when you make sure that everybody knows what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, where they're doing it, and you're giving them all the resources and holding them to account to get it done, because you've given them what they need to have, and then you're saying, cool, you're responsible for that, and I'm going to check back in and make sure you've done it, you're going to have this beautiful accountability framework, and you're going to end up with a really satisfied team. We want to be looking for those things. Confusion, they don't know what the finish line is. If you're seeing resistance, they don't know why they should go to the finish line. If you feel like people are sabotaging, you've got a misalignment in how we're going to get to the finish line. If you're seeing anxiety and worry, it's because they don't know what steps to take. They don't know what the system is. They don't know what the process is. They're probably going to take the easiest route to getting that answer. It's through you. And then the last one is that frustration piece, how we don't have the resources, or we have the resources, but said resources are not doing the work. If you look for those things and you start to tick them off and you answer those questions, where are we going, why are we going there, how are we going to behave on the way there, what are we going to do, and who's going to do the work, you're going to shift very quickly into having a completely different vibe about your business. It's going to feel clear, like total clarity about where we're going. We're going to have ease and flow because nobody's pulling back, because they all understand why we're on this journey. You're going to feel totally aligned in how we're getting there. You're going to have this total confidence, and we know what to do. We know where to go and get that information. We're going to have satisfaction because everybody's being held to account. And we know when we don't do things, someone's going to tell us, hey, you need to come back to the standard. And when we do meet the standard, I was going to say, hey, we really appreciate the work you put in and great job. That was awesome. And if you think about getting those 5 things right with your team, you won't have any of the challenges that I talked about. You won't have that, oh my God, I'm really scared of asking them to do their job. I'm really scared of getting this wrong or trying to be liked, because what you will have is that respect that goes both ways about, hey, like the expectations here are really clear. These guys have drawn us a box and they've said, color that box red. It's really clear what we need to do. And if you can make your business like that for your team, you are absolutely going to have a set of rockstar people. And when you have a set of rockstar people, the environment is filled with this really great energy. It's filled with these vibes. There's still going to be hard days. I'm not saying it's going to be roses and unicorns. When people can remove those emotions, then people can really start to have fun with what they do, show up and bring their energy and their focus and their creativity to making your business life better and easier. And cool thing about this is now what those 5 drivers are and what the 5 symptoms are of not having them, you can look around. You're like, okay, if we're like not getting this project done, which one of those 5 is showing up and how can I be clearer about it? And sometimes it's, but I told them that. Yeah, I get that. Like, you do a lot of repeating yourself, because human beings generally need to hear things more than once, generally need to hear things more than 3 times. And as the leader, it's your way to make sure that all this information is coming through repeatedly, that it's easy for them to do the job. You carry it around in your brain because you're super beautiful overachiever. You are emotionally attached to your business. You are in flow running your business. Your team are not. They're not nearly as bought into this as you. And that's totally okay. We shouldn't expect them to be. Or what we should know as the business owner, as the leader of this team, and how can I start to shift it so that I can get my rockstar team rocking. I can have an environment that feels good to come working for me as well as for them. So there's no more of this fear around asking people to do their job. I would love to know which one of those 5 symptoms is showing up for you in your business at the moment. How can we get clearer on where we're going? How can we communicate that more easily, more regularly? Because this is how we get to a place with a little bit more time freedom, because when your team can do this stuff without coming to you, without you being the shortcut, you are going to win back much time. And I want that for you, because you're a leader in your business. You need your time back to direct this environment in the right way, so that you can have some time for yourself. Because that's why we all started this journey in the first place, to have the flexibility and the freedom to be the mum that we wanted, to be the wife that we wanted to be, and ultimately to have some time to put your feet up and relax with your girlfriends. Until next time, stay moxie.